Magandang araw, Podmates. Howie Severino muli na nagpapaalala na nakakatalino ang mahabang attention span. May gera na naman sa Middle East kung saan may malaking populasyon ng mga Pilipino. Paano naiiba nagaganap ngayon sa Israel mula nung lusubin ito ng Hamas, ang kalaban nila sa Gaza? Bakit hindi matapos-tapos ang karahasan? Anong ugat nito? Para tulungan tayo maintindihan ang napaka-komplikadong sitwasyon doon. Kasama natin ngayon ang isang profesor sa Universidad ng Pilipinas sa Diliman, ang political scientist na si Herman Kraft. Magandang araw sa inyo, Professor Kraft.
Magandang araw din. At maraming salamat sa inyong imbitasyon.
Thank you for joining us, Prof. Para sa maraming Pilipino, ang Israel ay isang lugar lamang na may mga trabaho para sa mga OFW na minsan naiipit sa gera. No? So help us understand the roots of this conflict. Itong kasisimula lang na gera ay huling episode lamang ng mahabang kasaysayan ng digmaan sa Israel. Anong pinakaugat nito?
Well, kung ang pinag-uusapan natin ay yung alitan tungkol sa mga Hudyo at saka sa mga Palestino, no? Pwede natin itong balikan ng may ilang milestones, no? Historically, pwede natin balikan yung partition, no, ng Palestine, supposedly between a Jewish state at saka isang Palestinian state, no? Yun yung napag-usapan sa United Nations noong 1948, no? At ito talaga dapat yung pupuntahan noong o ito yung pinagmumulan, no? Nung ating mga pinag-usapan ngayon.
Pag sinabi yung Palestine, hindi ito bansa, no? What do you mean by nung 1947, 1948 there was a Palestine, no? But it was not an independent country, it was not a state. What was it?
It was a mandate given to the British, no, to administer a territory that was actually predominantly Arabic, but meron mga communities ng mga Jews, no, and which became parang naging parte siya ng usapan kasi dito tayo pupunta doon sa nangyari nung ikalawang digmaang pandaigdig, yung Holocaust. Ang pinakamalaking populasyon ng mga Hudyo sa mundo ay actually nasa Europa nung panahon na yon, no? Siguro sumusunod na yung mga Jewish migrants na nasa US, no? Pero ito yung pinakamalaking enclaves natin ng Jewish population ng panahon na yon. Dahil doon sa Holocaust, no? Parang nagkaroon ngayon ng sabihin na lang natin ng paniwala, no, doon sa mga komunidad ng mga Hudyo, no, na parang kailangan gumawa na sila ng sarili nilang estado, no, at merong sabihin natin may utang ang mundo sa kanila, no, dahil sa nangyari nga doon sa Holocaust. Doon ngayon pumasok yung kanilang yung movement nila, no, na magkaroon ng sarili ng estado doon sa kung ano yung pinag-uusapan natin ngayon na Palestine, no? Bakit sa Palestine? Kasi ito yung traditional, no, historical or even biblical. Ito yung lupa na pinangako sa kanilang Diyos, di ba? As the chosen people. So this goes back to very biblical times, no? In fact, the very argument nila for an Israeli state, no, for a Jewish state, a large part of it was based on the Bible, no? So nung pinag-usapan ngayon ito sa United Nations, no? And siguro nga dahil doon sa simpatya na nanggaling doon sa nangyari sa kanila doon sa Holocaust, no? Parang nagkaroon ng paniniwala na dapat nga siguro magkaroon sila ng sarili nilang estado, no? At ang napag-usapan na magiging lugar nito ay yung sinasabi nga na traditional nila na pwesto, no? Pag ginawa mo yun, meron kang mga komunidad na mga Arabo, no? These are the Palestinians, no? That will have to accept that particular arrangement. Paano hahatiin ang isang lugar na kung saan meron kang isang grupo ng mga tao na pumapasok, no, at may mga grupo ng tao na nandoon na. Hindi tinanggap ito ng mga Palestino, no? Hindi sila sumang-ayon doon sa naging desisyon sa United Nations, no? At yung mga Arab states, no, that emerged, no, pagkatapos ng Second World War, no, yun ngayon yung kanilang sinasabi na parang dapat hindi mangyari ito, hindi makatarungan yung desisyon na yon ng UN, no. Kaya parang ang nangyari nito ay ito yung tinatawag natin na yung partition ng Palestine, no, that actually when the state of Israel was declared, no, in 1948, nagkaroon ng gera, no, which eventually the Israelis actually won. But in the course of winning that war, the Palestinians, a large number of them were actually displaced. Nawala sila sa lugar nila. Kumbaga, natalo yung mga puwersa ng mga Arabo, no? Umalis sila doon sa mga lugar na kung saan yung mga yung Israeli forces, yung mga Hudyo, no, began to take over. So if we fast forward now, kasi parang pagkatapos nun may series ka ng mga gera between yung mga Arabo at saka yung mga tsaka yung Israel, no, which included things like, for instance, yung 1967 war, yung 1973 war, yung Yom Kippur War, no, and then eventually nga you come to yung towards the end of the 1970s, no, nagkaroon ka na ngayon ng mga usapan, and the Americans were actually responsible for for trying to push the talks together, no, yung Camp David Accords, no, na kung saan unti-unti yung mga Arab states na kaaway ng Israel, no, began to actually discuss peace terms with Israel, no. So Egypt yung unang-una dito sa mga ito. Jordan actually came next, no. Now think about it, kung ikaw yung Palestinian people, no, ang iniisip mo, no, na hindi tapos yung gera, dapat makuha namin ulit yung makuha namin ulit yung lupa na sinakop ng mga Israeli, no. At ang inaasahan mo ay itong mga Arab states na ito, no, natutulungan ka na ma-recover yung mga teritoryo na yon. And now, all of a sudden, ito yung mga Arab states na ito, nakipag-usap na sila sa Israel, nakipag-sign na sila ng peace accord. So kumbaga, parang nagkaroon sila ng problema as far as that arrangement was actually concerned, no. So parang tingin nila parang napapabayaan sila, no. Parang ganon yung nangyari. Ano ba yung teritoryo na pinag-uusapan natin? Well, of course, there are two significant pieces of territory. Yung una, yung tinatawag natin na West Bank, no. Yung West Bank kasi, ito ay teritoryo na nasakop, parang ito yung parte ng partition dapat na ibibigay doon sa mga Palestinians, no. Pero noong 1948 war, sinakop ito ng Jordan. So actually Jordan ang may hawak doon sa West Bank, no, until yung 1967 war, na kung saan nakuha ng Israel yung West Bank. Then the other piece of land na pinag-uusapan is yung Gaza Strip, no. It's maliit lang ito na teritoryo, no, na nandoon sa may Mediterranean. Yung southern border niya is actually Egypt, no, doon sa Sinai Peninsula. Ang katabi niya is Israel. It's a small piece of territory, a few hundred square miles. I think ang bilang nila ngayon is around 2.2 million Palestinians actually live there, no. So ito yung dalawang enclaves ngayon ng mga Palestinians na pinag-uusapan natin. Pero ayun nga, nagkaroon ngayon ng uprising, yung tinatawag niya na intifada, no, in the 1980s, no. Ang ng uprising na yon is the Palestinians, tingin ko dalawa yung rason niyan. Una, yung frustration nga over yung issue ng nakikita nila yung mga kakampi ng mga Arab states are now settling with Israel, no. The second thing was because Israel was settling with the Arab states, no, the other thing that they were actually doing, or what was actually happening, no, yung nangyayari dito, no, nagtatayo sila ng mga settlements doon sa teritoryo in the West Bank in particular, doon sa mga teritoryo na ngayon na yon, no, na kung saan naglalagay sila ng mga Jewish settlers, right? Similarly sa Gaza, meron din mga ganon, no. So ang nangyari in the 1980s, nagkaroon ka ngayon ng uprising ng mga Palestino, no, against what they referred to as yung Israeli occupation, no, of their territories, of their land. Dahil doon sa first at saka yung second intifada, nagkaroon ng agreement between the Israelis, and the Palestinians, na number one, papayag yung mga Israeli na i-recognize sila ang PLO, yung Palestinian Liberation Organization, as yung representative ng Palestinian people. Okay? Tapos ang pupuntahan ngayon nun is that the PLO would now actually agree to three things, number one, i-recognize nila yung right ng Israel na mag-exist, yung state ng Israel to actually exist. And everything else follows from that particular point, magkakaroon ka ngayon ng Palestinian representation, and then eventually that transformed itself into yung Palestinian Authority, right? Which became bilang natin yung government ng Palestine, they held elections, the Palestinians actually held elections.
But this is not a state yet, no? So kasi
No.
pag sinabi mong election and then may Palestinian Authority, etc. Parang
May bansa na sila.
May bansa na sila, and we know that they have their own flag, and then they have other hallmarks of being a country, diba? And
yeah.
But I have some basic questions before you continue, no?
Sure.
Pag sinabi yung Palestinian, because are they Arabs also?
They're Arabs, and of course, the majority of them are actually Muslims, So they come from the same stock as the citizens and residents of the Arab states, So they're considered to be Arabs, But when you talk about Palestine, right? Tama ka. There is no such thing as a Palestinian state in the sense of it being recognized internationally, pero meron silang representation sa United Nations, as an observer, In fact, the irony of it is because Israel agreed to the PLO being the representatives of the Palestinian people, ang observer actually is the PLO originally, and then eventually it became the Palestinian Authority. The PA actually had jurisdiction over both the West Bank, and Gaza initially, when things were actually set up. Pero ayun nga, all of this was premised on the idea that the Palestinian Authority recognized the right of Israel to actually exist, and that you're going to move towards a two-state arrangement, na parang ganun yung pupuntahan nung set of agreements na yon. Hamas emerged, right, in the early 2000s because they opposed, what was agreed upon, in Camp David, and yung discussions between the Palestinians and the Israelis, in Norway, in the what became known as the Oslo Accords, So ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na naging agreement as far as the establishment of the Palestinian Authority is concerned, and then the acceptance of a state of Israel's right to actually exist, So Hamas was a homegrown group, homegrown as in it came out of the Palestinian enclaves. Position
and it was concentrated in Gaza. Gaza lang ba yung Hamas or nasa West Bank na rin?
Actually, meron din sila sa West Bank na representation. Hamas actually emerged precisely because they opposed what was agreed upon in Oslo, in Norway, and basically they rejected the notion that Israel had the right to exist as a state.
So basically they want to destroy Israel. That yun ang goal nila.
And that's establish a Palestinian state where Israel is right now. I talked about elections being held, and in those elections, the dominant party, the Fatah, was the one that was actually responsible for creating the Palestinian Authority. Hamas emerged, and created its bailiwick, in Gaza. So effectively, ang nangyari ngayon after the Palestinian Authority was actually established, and all of these things were put into place, nagkaroon ka ngayon ng conflict between Hamas, and the Palestinian Authority, right? Na kung saan parang ang nangyari doon, the Palestinian Authority lost ground in Gaza. Hamas became the dominant party in Gaza, and Fatah and the Palestinian Authority only had its position of dominance in the West Bank. So effectively may dalawa kang enclaves governed separately, no, by different groups, no, with different political objectives as far as yung relationship with Israel is actually concerned, no. So here is the Palestinian Authority negotiating with Israel, no, on how to move forward, no, on this two-state solution, right, to the establishment of a Palestinian state, no, which Hamas completely rejected, no? Kumbaga hindi yun yung objective nila. Ang para sa kanila dapat ma-overthrow yung Israel, no, and then we establish a Palestinian state, no, over all of these territories. So in that context now, you had a situation where Israel had to negotiate with the Palestinian Authority, no, and at the same time deal with the threat, no, that Hamas actually posed, no. But you also had within Israel a debate, right, over the question of, well, basically, do we agree to a two-state solution, no? So meron kang mga grupo sa Israel na ang sa tingin nila, no, ay nararapat lamang na i-recognize natin yung karapatan ng mga Palestinians to have their own state. Okay? But there are, of course, other parties, or at least from a political standpoint, no, sila yung naging dominante as far as Israel is concerned, na kung saan sa tingin nila Israel is going to be Israel, no. So kumbaga the West Bank, no, and Gaza will be part of Israel. You're going to have settlements there, no, and so on, and the Palestinians will just have to accept that. And this is the kind of coalition I think that many Palestinians believe, no, Netanyahu has actually created in Israel.
Netanyahu's Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime
Netanyahu,
Minister,
yeah, that's right,
of Israel, who cobbled
yeah,
together this right-wing coalition government.
That's
in
right.
Israel.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you now have a situation where the Palestinians are becoming more and more frustrated, no? The situation in the West Bank is just as frustrating as the situation in Gaza. The difference, of course, is sino yung partido na namumuno. And in Gaza, no, you have a constant situation na kung saan Hamas was always threatening to do violence, no, against Israel. Small skirmishes, actions, no, rocket firing events, no, and so this did not contribute, no, to the conversation about Israel actually pushing towards, no, a two-state solution as far as the problem of Palestine is actually concerned. So kasi parang yung idea na parang how are we going to actually negotiate with them when they're actually attacking us, right? Yun yung situation as far as Gaza is concerned.
So may dalawang competing vision dito sa Middle East. One is coexistence between Israel and a future Palestinian state. And
yes.
And then the Jews and the Arabs, Israel and the Arab states will in the future live harmoniously side by side. And then the other vision is Israel does not have a right to exist, must be destroyed, and the Middle East will be ruled by Arabs, Arab leaders, Arab governments, etc. No, but the reality now is Israel is there. It is a powerful it's a powerful country, powerful militarily, economically, politically, kasi sa kanila pumapanig ang Amerika eh. So and of course, and then the Jewish diaspora is very influential and powerful, no? So that being the case, we're trying to we want to understand the motivations of Hamas here, no? So Hamas wants to destroy Israel, but it knows that Israel is very powerful. So in a way, parang suicidal mission to ng Hamas, no? I mean, they want to destroy Israel, but by doing this, didn't they create a situation where they themselves would be destroyed? Dahil they're like you said, Gaza is a very small place. Israel, they're surrounded by Israel. So naka-blockade sila ngayon. So even if Israel does not invade them and occupy them, they can be starved. In fact, pinutol pati internet, pinutol, tubig. I mean, so why would Hamas do this now? I mean, ano yung motivation nito? Is there a rational reason behind all of this?
There must be a rational reason, at least rational as far as Hamas is actually concerned, no? And maybe the objectives are not strategic, no? Baka tactical lang talaga yung objectives nila. Like for instance, kasi parang ang ano nila was one of the things that seems to be part of what they want to do was to get hostages that they can exchange for. No, they can exchange for Palestinians who are in jail right now in Israel, no, which apparently had happened before. But of course the expectation there, no, is that Israel will just take this the way that the Palestinians seem to actually view it, no? And I agree. It seems to be a suicide mission as far as what their objectives are actually concerned. If you look at this as a in the same context as political terrorism, right? Terrorist attacks, no? Ano bang objectives ng terrorism? Gusto mong i-project ngayon yung ano mo. Gusto mong i-project yung political agenda ninyo. Gusto ninyong ipakita sa buong mundo na ganito yung sitwasyon na which apparently from their perspective, no, they were being ignored, no? Hindi napapansin yung kalagayan nila.
Nasa sideline na yung Palestinian cause.
No?
Because even Saudi nag-uusap na rin ng
nag-uusap na with
Saudi,
Israel. That's right. Oo. So parang kumbaga yung window nila to be able to achieve whatever their objectives are, it's actually becoming smaller and smaller, no, as their support as the countries that are supposed to support them, no, are talking to Israel, no, and actually signing peace accords, no, with Israel. So there is that political objective, no, of trying to get their cause again, no, in the agenda of everyone, no, especially the countries that they want support from, no. And then the other thing would be the notion of unifying the Palestinians, no, in as far as this particular cause is actually concerned, no. Kasi nga baka mamaya ang tingin nila wala na, iisa na lang patutunguhan ng natin ng relasyon natin sa Israel, and it has to do with the idea that we have to negotiate, no, and that means recognizing Israel's existence, no, as a state. So you do have those kinds of objectives, no, and maybe given the desperation that they're actually feeling, no, tingin nila kailangan gawin ito.
Could it also be trying to expose a weakness of Israel? Kasi nga, this was a major military operation by Hamas that apparently surprised Israel, which has the reputation for really for a strong military and with also a wide and strong intelligence network. Parang naisahan ng Israel. So na-expose na mahina, at least in this particular instance, na di ba, na nagkaroon ng maraming patay na Israeli, and then ang daming na hostage. So there was at least a temporary victory by Hamas, and then Israel was exposed as weak in this particular episode, because hindi nila na defend yung border, and in a way it undermines also, I guess, Israel's standing in the Middle East. Kasi the reason why the Arab states are accepting the reality of Israel is because ang lakas nila ang lakas ng Israel di ba? Ilang gera na yung kung saan nanalo ang Israel. They won in 1948, they won in 1967, they won in 1973. parang ina-accept na rin ng mga iba't ibang Arab states ang Israel because ang perception nila is, well, there's nothing they can do about Israel. They cannot destroy Israel. It's too strong. It's backed by the United States. We might as well coexist with them. And here is Hamas that doesn't accept Israel. So they're going to show that Israel is not as strong as the Arab states, the Arab world believes.
Yeah.
And maybe in that sense, they did accomplish that goal.
I think
Pero
they have.
while maybe setting themselves up, Hamas,
As a
for
sacrifice.
and for a huge retaliation that might actually widen the conflict, no? So,
but like I said, part of the purpose would have been to unify, right? To bring Palestinians in particular, but I think also Arabs in general, no, behind their cause again, no, and so to a large extent, because remember, the 1973 war, the Yom Kippur War, also showed the same kinds of weaknesses, no, in Israel. Right, they were surprised by the attacks, no, of both Egypt and Syria, no, during that war. So kumbaga, kaya nga sinasabi na ngayon, it's exactly the same, right? The intelligence failure now is reflective of what happened then. Israel has its moments of weakness, and I agree with you that this is probably one of the things that the Palestinians were trying to actually show. Right, that Israel is not the all-powerful and all-conquering military and intelligence state, no? Pero if they think that Israel is actually going to take this lying down, then of course magkakaroon sila ng problema, no? Just like
problema na ngayon. We're reading reports of ambulances being hit by missiles and hospitals running out of fuel. It's a horrible humanitarian situation now. In Gaza, I think wala na yatang natirang Hamas fighter sa Israel. Puro bangkay na nahanap doon, no? But Israel, I think, intends to occupy Gaza and has already bombed key installations, civilian targets, no? So it's an unfolding nightmare, no?
Disaster,
But Prof, no? Can we just rewind a little bit to the 1940s, if you don't mind? No, I'm just curious. Kasi there was a great sympathy for the Jewish people because of what happened in World War II. You mentioned the Holocaust. About 4 million Jews were exterminated by the Nazis, led by Hitler during World War II, and so the Jewish people needed to survive, no? And they felt that they needed the state, and then they got the support of the Western powers because who were victorious. So sabi nyo nga, nandun na yung British mandate sa Middle East, and then the United Nations said, okay, you can have your own state, no, Jewish state, and they declared independence in 1948. But it took some fighting, no, by Jewish militias, no? So it wasn't like it was handed to the Jews on a silver platter. Parang pinaglaban din nila to, no? But there was also fighting on the Arab side, no? Kasi nga, the British were also occupiers, di ba, of Palestinian territory. Nauna pa nga sila doon. Now, ang tanong ko is, if the United Nations was willing to give the Jews their own state in Palestine, bakit hindi nabigyan din ng sariling estado o state yung mga Palestino? These Jews were mostly Europeans. Europeans, they migrated to the Middle East, which was occupied or inhabited mostly by Arabs. Of course, lupa na itong pinag-uusapan, di ba? So people are willing to die for their land, no? And then you give them their own, independent state, but these colonizing Western powers did not do the same for the Palestinians. So parang it just seemed to have the seeds of this kind of like endless war, no? People will not just give up their land, 'di ba? Ang daming kakampi yung mga Palestino, no? So why is that? Bakit hindi nagkaroon ng two-state solution from the start?
Actually, from the start, that was the solution. It was a two-state solution. Kaya nga parang yung pinag-uusapan nun, what the UN voted on was the partition of Palestine. In fact, if we believe the stories, no, the Philippines played an important role kasi it was our vote that turned things around as far as Israel was actually concerned, no.
So why was the Philippines so instrumental in the United Nations vote? So you're talking about 1947, di ba? Okay, so
We're talking about 1947.
Yeah, katatapos lang ng World War II, a
Yeah.
lot of destruction all over the world. So there, the UN was helping rebuild a new world order. And then I guess part of this was, how to solve this big problem in the Middle East. So anong naging papel ng Pilipinas? We ourselves had just become independent in 1946.
That's right.
Diba?
Yeah.
So I guess we were sympathetic to other people who wanted their own country, their own independence. Tama ba yun?
Medyo, kaya lang the United States, no, during that time was actually not inclined to support the establishment of an Israeli state, no. So ang expectation was boboto tayo with the United States, no. Basically, we would vote against, no. What happened was apparently our vote was the one that settled the question kasi parang majority ba ng how many votes are we talking about that would vote in favor of partition. We voted in favor of partition and
ito, sa United Nations General Assembly ito.
So yeah. And ang ano doon is that our vote, no, was at least one of, if not the one that turned the tide, no, in terms of getting the majority, no, that Israel needed in order for a vote for partition to actually happen. So kumbaga, ang pinag-uusapan doon, ipapartition ba natin ang Palestine, no, between a Jewish state and an Arab state. At that time, the UN was made up of a smaller number of countries, no? Most of it European in nature, no? So parang ang naging nila was to vote in favor of actually partitioning Palestine, no? So what happened to the idea of a Palestinian state? No, why only a Jewish state? Why was it that only a Jewish state was actually eventually established? No, simply because the Palestinians, of course, refused to accept it logically, no, but also the Arab states, no, surrounding Palestine, no, actually opposed the results of the vote in the UN. So in rejecting it, they actually went to war against Israel. So ito yung gera ng 1940, yung sinasabi mo na, yung mga militias, no, 48, no. So Israel won that war. Actually, one of the funny things about the decision about partition, no, is that if you take a look at the map, the proposed map of how the partition was going to happen, it was funny, right? Kasi meron kang mga non-contiguous territories na ibibigay sa Israel, yun yung parte na magiging teritoryo nila, no? Non-contiguous, hindi dikit-dikit, no?
Yeah.
So so parang it was actually rather odd, no, in that sense kung bakit pumayag ang UN na ganun yung mangyayari. Well, nagkagera, no, the Palestinians were forced out, the Israelis actually occupied most of the territories that except for the West Bank. Yun nga, this is in 1948, no. The West Bank was occupied by the Jordanians, no.
Jordan.
But the rest but the rest of the territory, no, was actually occupied by Israel. So ang nangyari ngayon, what was proposed, no, what was proposed to be yung magiging territory ng mga Arabs were now actually being occupied by Israel. So ang nangyari, nawalan ngayon ng teritoryo yung Palestinian Arabs.
Lumaki palalo yung teritoryo ng Israel. Dahil nanalo sila ng gera.
Oo. No? And so from
in a way,
that point on, nag-backfire yung yon. Instead of destroying Israel, no, parang they facilitated the creation of a stronger Israel, no, and then nawalan ngayon ng teritoryo yung Palestinians, no, and they were forced to stay in the West Bank, no, under Jordanian authority, no, and in Gaza, no, na kung saan it was the Egyptians that were actually in charge of that particular place, no. So parang nawalan sila ng representation, no. And so from that point on, you had a Jewish state, you had an Israel, no, and the Palestinians had to actually find a way to be able to establish their own state. No, and ang logical na doon, yung state, yung Palestinian state would be the West Bank, no? Kaso hawak na siya ng Jordan.
Okay, so there was an opportunity for the Palestinians to have their own state, but they would have to coexist and give up territory to a new Israeli or Jewish state,
Exactly.
no?
That's
And
right. Yes.
which they did not accept kasi gusto nila kasi sa kanila Palestine is ours. All of Palestine
Yes.
is ours, no? Why should anyone carve this out for another people
Oo.
na mostly galing pang Europa, 'di ba? Sa amin ito. So in a way we can understand that. However, determined din yung Jewish people na magkaroon sila ng sariling estado and they happen
Tado.
so nagkaroon ng gera and they happen to win. And so instead of a Palestinian state, now we have a Jewish state and no Palestinian state.
No
So
Palestinian state. Yeah.
there was actually a window of opportunity for two states, pero that would have been considered a defeat by the
By
Arabs
the
and the
Arabs. Yeah.
Palestinians. Oo, so they thought they could just drive the Jews out of the Middle East
Yeah.
and they would just regain their own territory. But I guess they didn't foresee that Israel would get this strong. And now here we are, no? Ang lakas ng Israel in many ways, no? I mean, their nuclear power, they're strong economically, scientifically, they're leaders in many fields, no? So they're not about to go away, no? Especially militarily. They just called up 300,000 reservists. I mean, this is going to be a major war. So, Prof, where is this going? Ang daming Pilipino dyan, tens of thousands of Filipinos in Israel alone. I know people in my community here in Batangas who are in Israel and they say, it's a good place to work. Okay naman daw ang sweldo, pero of course may risk na ganito, no? But so ngayon, naiipit sila. And then of course, there's a possibility that lumawak pa to, madamay pa yung ibang bansa or yung ibang bansa gustong sumali dito. And of course, America now is, it's always been involved in helping arm Israel. It's a staunch supporter of Israel, no? Ano yung mga maaari mangyari dito?
Kung tutuusin, no? Ang narinig na natin ngayon is that Israel already surrounds Gaza, no? Parang kumbaga ang exit point na lang for the Palestinians in Gaza is their southern border with Egypt, no? So doon na lang kung tatakbo ka, doon ka na lang pwedeng tumakbo. In fact, that was the warning that Prime Minister Netanyahu actually gave, di ba? Parang tumakbo na kayo, no, bago kami pumasok diyan. So they've already basically surrounded the Gaza Strip, no, in 1, 2, 3, including the sea, including Mediterranean Sea, no. Parang they've surrounded the Gaza Strip on three sides, no. So it's going to be very difficult. The most dangerous parts of Israel that was vulnerable to the attacks, no, were the areas immediately around Gaza, no. The other parts of Israel is subject to, of course, rocket attacks. So if we're talking about yung threat, yung danger sa mga to Filipinos who are in Israel, no. The immediate danger is not similar to what happened when the Palestinians actually attacked, no, the settlements, the towns, no, around Gaza, no. But there are rocket attacks that are still going on. There might be the possibility that lumawak yung gera. Pero lalawak saan, di ba? Parang yun yung tanong. Sino ang mga pwede maging involved, no? Alam mo na in Lebanon, no, the Israelis are already in skirmishes, no, with the Hezbollah, which is a militia that is aligned with Iran, no. And then of course the Golan Heights as well, no. The Syrians are also acting up there, and there are fights that are actually going on there. The danger, however, no, is whether the Palestinian Authority can actually maintain its control, no, over the Palestinian population in the West Bank. We've seen videos of Palestinians in the West Bank, no, rallying and demonstrating, no, in support of Hamas, no, and of course Palestinians in Gaza. So the one of the dangers there is baka mamaya magkaroon ka na naman ng uprising in the West Bank, no. It basically it creates a situation where Israel will have to fight on another front kung tutuusin, no? So it's not just a question of of how much uh, 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 death and destruction is going to happen in Gaza. It's the danger that this might actually spread, to other areas, where there is strong support for the Palestinian cause.
In other words, this is far from over, no? So
I don't,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
and being very parochial now, no? So ang daming Pilipino na nagpipilgrimage dyan sa Israel. They go to the Holy Land. Would you recommend them canceling or postponing now? Kasi halimbawa, yung mga pupuntang Jerusalem, no? Many Filipino tour groups there, many of these led by Catholic priests. Should they push through with this? Malayo ba yung Jerusalem halimbawa dito sa maaring madamay na mga lugar dito sa gera na to kung lumawak pa?
I would recommend na wag. I-cancel muna yung mga, i-postpone muna nila yung mga trips nila, no? Most of, as you said, most of these trips actually go to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is actually in the West Bank, right? So kung magkakaroon ka ng spillover, no, nung conflict, no, in areas outside of Gaza, and the West Bank is one of the likely places, no, you don't know what's going to happen in Jerusalem, and it is a tinderbox, no. Ang Jerusalem lagi na lang yan sensitive spot as far as Israel-Palestinian relations are actually concerned, no. So yes, I would actually recommend, no, for those who have pilgrimages that are actually scheduled, no, or are planning to actually go to the Holy Land right now, best to actually let things die down first, no, and die down in the sense of it's not just about the fighting actually being over. Kailangan talaga mag-settle muna, because we don't know kung ano yung mga ramifications, no. Like I said, spilling over of this conflict, no, in other areas in Israel and Palestine.
You know, just to wrap this up, Prof. Pag sinaming Jewish people, no, may personal relationship yung Pilipinas sa Jews, no, because in 1939 nung sinisimula ng i-persecute ng Nazis yung Jews, no, we actually sheltered over 1,000 of them in the Philippines, no? Si then Commonwealth President Manuel Quezon. Wanted them to come to the Philippines, no? So wanted to shelter them, no? So nabanggit mo nga na, we supported, we one of the early supporters of a Jewish state in the United Nations, but even before that, before we were even independent, we were hospitable, we were accommodating, no, to the Jews, no. But what motivated Manuel Quezon to shelter Jews during their worst moment, no, maybe in their history, kasi ito nag-uumpisa pa lang yung Holocaust noon.
I wish I knew the answer to that. Pero parang ang pinaka pwede natin i-assume talaga noon is that, well, kahit na anong sabihin mo about, we can be very cynical about our political leaders, no. There is a modicum of decency, no, especially with that generation of political leaders, no. And I think there was an honest concern, no, about the condition, the situation that the Jews were actually facing in Nazi Germany. So parang talagang pumunta kayo dito, at least dito safe kayo, no? Not necessarily na dito kayo magsettle, no? Pero parang kung naghahanap kayo,
may sanctuary kayo.
No? Yeah, kasi this was a time when a lot of Jews in Europe, in Germany in particular, no, were trying to leave Germany. But there were no countries that were willing to actually accept them. Hirap silang makahanap ng pwesto kung saan sila pwedeng pumunta, no, when they departed from Germany.
So we want to thank you, Professor Kraft, no, for illuminating this complicated and worrisome part of world affairs. Salamat sa inyong pagtuturo. Mabuhay kayo, Professor Herman Kraft, Professor of Political Science sa University of the Philippines, Diliman.
Maraming salamat din.
Hi, I'm Howie Severino. Check out the Howie Severino Podcast. New episodes will stream every Thursday. Listen for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other platforms.